there are certain truths that people who have done horrible things can never face or fess up to.
Yes.
And we see this later on with Annabella. At the end, she never really recognizes Joshua.
Yes.
She just is like, no, you're a ghost. And who knows? She's probably been haunted by the ghost of Joshua this whole time.
Yes.
And just like, but she just
Clearly
will not
she
admit
feels
that
bad.
she did anything wrong.
Yeah.
Otherwise, she'd be like, oh, Joshua's alive? Oh my gosh, I did everything to help you. Instead, she knows how awful she's been. And she can't, even when he's back. She's just like, no, you died. You died.
Mm-hmm.
You died. You can't be here. Because if you're alive, that means I'm a bad person.
Yes.
So you can't be alive.
Yes.
It means
right?
I'm a bad mother.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's
it means I abandoned my child.
She doesn't want to admit
she
or
will
accept
never
this.
admit her own shadow. She will never admit any of
Yes.
this. Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Yes.
So I'm getting...
Welcome back to the State of the Ark podcast. My name is Mike.
My name's Kason.
This is our Final Fantasy XVI analysis. We left off with Clive and Jill and Goots
Yep.
getting into the Crystalline Dominion after their little Trader's Pass got stolen. And they had to go get that recovered and help some kids. And now we have some scenes to cover that we had skipped because we were running out of time going back into the Empire. And we will be leading all the way up into the fight against Bahamut. That's the plan for today's episode for what we're going to cover. So we cut to the Imperial capital here.
Yep.
Dion is meeting with his father, Annabella, and Olivier. Olivier has been made the Emperor of San Brec now.
Yes.
He was pissed when he heard this.
And what a crazy thing for an emperor to do is while he is still alive, being like, hey, this young child, like you only have a child emperor. It's happened in the past,
But usually when
the
emperor dies.
Exactly. It's like they don't choose that. They don't want a 10-year-old to run the whole empire. It's just that's the only eligible heir and everybody else died.
Yeah.
So for this to be purposefully done, especially the way Olivier acts, he's just like looking at this flower. He's completely absent. He has I don't want to say he has no idea what's going on because it turns out he does talk.
Until the
he
very
can say words.
end. As soon as the ends are fulfilled, all of a sudden he just wakes up.
He's
and
like, oh, by the way.
I'm actually totally lucid and...
very aware, very intentional about everything. But seems completely absent. And it's like, what's going on with the Emperor? And Dion is, of course, noticing this too and is like, something's wrong. Like, what are you guys doing?
This makes no sense, right?
Yeah. The Emperor says, the empire we rule needs young blood.
Yeah.
And that's like the stupidest. Like, how young are we talking? Okay, make a baby your emperor then, okay? Like, Dion is younger. I don't know. The Emperor doesn't seem that old.
I shall advise him until he comes of age, or for as long as I am able. The empire we seek to build needs young blood to rule it. And I can think of none better suited to the task. And I mean, Dion's listening to this just like his brain is broken. Like, what in the fetch are you talking about?
Absolute madness.
This does not make any sense.
No.
This is crazy. And so this is where I think he accuses him of being influenced by Ultima. What does he say? Like,
he says, Father...
Are these really your thoughts?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, one of them is, Father, these are the words of a tyrant.
Yeah,
now,
that too, yeah.
Does that come a little bit later?
Yeah, so let's see. Let me get into the dialogue here. So, Father, please, or for as long as I am able, we read that line. There's other news, Dion. Hugo Kupka is dead. Drake's Fang destroyed. The pillars of the Republic have fallen. Ere long, the Imperial banner shall fly over every city in Storm, and then Valisthea. All shall bow before their emperor. Father, these are the words of a tyrant.
Yep.
They are the words of a god.
Yep.
The emperor whom I gladly serve, great Grieger made flesh. So that's their belief.
Yes.
Which was also
it was a common ancient idea, like Egypt and elsewhere.
The god would be born as the emperor.
Yep. The king was kind of the incarnate version of the body, or of the god. And that was at least in part why there was some idea of how the emperor was supposed to act, because people had the stories of the gods. And like, hey, you're not embodying the god properly. You're not being a very good king, a very good emperor.
Right.
And so they were meant to embody him, like in a I don't know,
metaphysical.
Yeah,
sense.
not completely literal sense. It's more or less what I'm saying. Of course, they're taking it pretty literally here, and this is so interesting because it's like, okay, the emperor didn't say that he was the incarnate. He says that his son is the incarnate.
Yeah.
So he gives the emperorship.
That's a good point.
But wasn't he also, if that's how it works?
It wasn't he. Does the
He would have been.
soul of Grieger just like hop bodies
Or did
whenever
it
she
skip?
wants to?
Did it skip? Did the Emperor
Kind of like
get
Elwyn
skipped over?
with getting
Yeah.
skipped with the blessing of the Phoenix?
Right, and then it's like, oh, the Grieger blessed my son, not me. Okay. I don't know about
That's a
that.
good point. I
But
didn't even think about that.
the belief is there. This is great Grieger made flesh. So these are the words, and this is so cool. What is this so cool? He says, these are the words of a tyrant, and then the answer is these are the words of a god. This kid.
I just
Meaning-
realized it. It just came together to me. I don't think the Emperor believed in the idea of the great Grigor being made flesh until Annabella came around.
Oh, interesting.
So this is
it's
like
in that mural
he's
behind
being
him.
reminded. What does he say? He says specifically, gosh, where was it? He says specifically like she helped remind me or help me see the nature
Yes.
of
Yes.
tyrants and rulers or something
That's right.
like that.
All
right?
things in their proper place.
Okay, because this is where he says, Father, I find you much changed. Is this truly the path that you wish to tread, or are these the ambitions of another, of Ultima perhaps? And the Emperor says, what nonsense is this? I speak my mind, and my mind only.
Right.
Though I do owe Annabella thanks for reminding me of certain truths regarding the nature of nations, of rulers, and of the divine.
Yeah.
So I
that's it.
think
she reconnected him.
She convinced him that Olivier is great Grigor
Okay.
made flesh. He didn't originally believe he was.
Okay.
And then
I see.
then it passed to
Yeah,
Olivier.
so you're right about that.
His opinion is that I was off the path of Grigor.
Right.
And she brought me back to it and helped me realize that Olivier is Grigor made flesh.
Right.
I was never in the first place because I was not. That makes more sense to me.
That it would be very difficult to convince somebody like him that this kid is your God made flesh.
Yes.
It's so funny though because Dion says that they're the words of a tyrant, but then the emperor, not kid emperor, the adult emperor, then says these are the words of a god, the emperor. So meaning that the kid told him this,
Yeah.
right? So the kid talks to him,
Yes.
right?
And
those are his words,
yes.
little Olivier's words.
Yes.
Is that what he's saying here?
Yes. Well, this kind of goes back even to what we were confused about, I think it was last episode, where they were all praising Olivier for having, like, what's the word I'm looking for? Negotiated with
Right.
with the Republic.
And
And
it's
we
like,
were all like,
how?
wait a minute, that didn't happen. It was all Annabella. But as we find out later, Olivier is perfectly capable of just, like,
Yes.
turning on...
We just haven't seen it
flipping
yet.
the switch and being like,
Yeah,
hey,
yeah.
I'm going to start talking like a normal human now. So maybe he does do that, and maybe he has done that behind closed doors in a way Dion hasn't seen.
When Olivier turns it on, he is quite convincing, apparently.
Yes.
So, yeah, that's great.
So I just have to say this real quick. Mike, sorry if I get your name wrong here. Is it Payhel? Did a mid-journey freaking image
He did a travesty is what he did.
of my face as Clive and Kason's face as Joshua. This is probably something we'll have to put on the screen for people to see because it's funny.
Yeah.
It's like a combination. It's like it's supposed to be combining Joshua's face with your face,
But
which is
it
what
kind
that
of-
looks like.
Yeah.
But me, it just looks like me.
Yeah, it's just you put with the hair. Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't
Yeah.
really look like Clive, but this is like an interesting mesh where it doesn't look like you, but it also doesn't necessarily. It's like the perfect balance between them.
Yeah,
Anyways,
yeah.
It's funny. I thought I'd give it acknowledgement. Thanks for doing that. It's funny. Okay, so where were we at here? With Olivier's ability to turn on his robot
Yeah.
voice and speak.
And be convincing somewhat.
Yeah. So obviously that's happening.
Yeah.
I think maybe behind closed doors or whatever.
And he's got that flower. And what's really cool is you end up seeing that shape of the flower later on in a big way, which was very surprising to me because I'm like, what is up with these flowers, man?
Yes.
Like when the Emperor was sending Dion out to battle the first time, he kind of puts a flower in his armor. I think he does something like that again. He just keeps, it's almost a way of reminding him what's important or of showing dominance or putting a flower into his clothes is almost it's almost a way of exerting his influence over him, right?
Right.
And then this kid's got this flower. He's just staring at it, right? Totally mesmerized by the flower.
It's like the national symbol of Sam Breck, this flower, because it's called Drake's dragon's something to do with dragon's
I
tail
can't
or
remember.
something like that. That's what that flower is called.
Yeah.
And so that's, they're all dragon worshippers or whatever.
Wyvern's tail. Wyvern's tail.
That's what it's called. So anyway, what's cool in the scene is that, the Emperor's kind of like, all right, we're done talking now. It's time to go have a meeting, Olivier. And he's like, oh, those boring old men again. And they're walking out, and he drops the flower.
Yeah, and
as they're exiting.
Steps on it, right?
Well, Annabella does.
Oh, she steps on it.
Which is, it's symbolic in the scene, right? She's crushing the empire underfoot.
The current
She's the
empire.
one, she's the influence that's destroying the empire.
So she wants to break it.
Purposefully steps on it.
Yes, on purpose.
It's not like an accident she walked over it.
Yeah.
It's there on the ground. She has a conversation with Dion.
And she...
basically implicating that she has basically made this all happen.
Yes.
And then she purposefully steps on it. Now...
to remake the empire in her image later on.
Yes. Yeah. Let's go through the dialogue between her and Dion real quick first. Because this is told in sort of a non-linear way. We break away from this scene before it's over, and then we return to it, and then we in the middle of his conversation with Joshua later, we come back to it again. So I'm going to try to get through it in a linear way, so we understand what happened here. So they walk out.
Well, it was interesting because you already mentioned that. He already mentioned to his father, is Ultima the one doing this?
Right.
Well, Dion shouldn't know about Ultima.
Yeah.
Right. So this scene is taking place after Joshua and Dion had a little chat.
Yes.
That we were not privy to. We're going to find out what happened there later.
Right.
But clearly Ultima was brought up in that talk.
Right.
And now Dion is aware of Ultima.
Probably when Joshua came to his tent. Remember that scene where he walked in and was like, am I addressing a ghost? It probably would have happened there, but there's actually even another scene in the imperial capital where they were talking. So they've been having multiple talks about this. Anyway, so Dion refers to her as a traitoress, that she betrayed her country, which was Rosaria. Yep. She slew her husband. You have ever been an invaluable servant to Sambrec, Prince Dion, says Annabella. I trust you will continue to serve your emperor in the wars to come. That canker, he starts losing his cool. Silence, you insolent wretch, says his father to him. You will bend the knee. All else is heresy. Sire, forgive me. So he submits in this moment. This audience is over. Come, your radiance. And that's when he takes Olivier away and he drops the flower. So Annabella says, does it pain you that you will not inherit your father's throne? I've suffered worse. So he's not really that interested in that part of it. Yeah. He really is the noble, person that Joshua remembered him being.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure it sucks and he's upset about it, but that's not what he's really truly upset about. He's really truly upset that his father is being manipulated by this traitoress who is who had already betrayed some other country and is now trying to betray his and harm his people.
Right.
That's what he's at the core concerned about here. She says, count your blessings, Dion. For a base-born child to be chosen by Bahamut is miracle enough. You have risen on his wings, but you shall rise no higher, lest your impure blood stain the throne. What do you know of my blood? Now, this is where it cuts away, and we return to it later. But she's insinuating
that he's not...
His mother was not...
Yeah, the true mother.
Was not the queen or empress, not of noble birth.
Right.
That he's some bastard child or something like this.
Yeah.
Now, they don't really get into this at any point, at least up to where I've played further past this. I don't know if they're going to, but the way he responds seems to be that he knew this. This was a secret.
Right, but nobody else knew. Yeah,
in
How
the
did
Empire.
she figure out?
Yeah, she found out that he was not born. Maybe he is the son of the emperor, but he's not the son of an empress, of a noble woman.
Right.
And so this was something that was kept secret from the country or whatever, right? So I need to skip down here a little bit.
Oh, because this is the
because
Goots.
we cut away from Goots and we already covered all that.
Yeah,
okay, we return to the scene. Okay, never mind. We come back to a conversation with Dion and Joshua.
Oh, yeah, that's it.
In the Imperial capital. I don't know how Joshua got in there. I mean, I guess nobody expects he's alive. Everyone figures he's dead, so they wouldn't
Yeah.
suspect some guy walking in there. And he just like, my friend's coming to visit. Ignore him or whatever.
Yeah.
So I guess it's that, it's not really that big a deal. But they're talking. And I confess, when you first told me of this fiend, I had my doubts of Ultima. And the more than a few at that. A beast that labors to plunge Valisthea into turmoil, all in pursuit of your brother. But that wound is proof enough that evil is afoot. Then I have your answer. I think Joshua saying, Your Highness, will you join me in this fight?
Right.
I cannot, not yet. And he basically says, I've got to take care of what's going on here first. This is my responsibility.
So he can't let the empire of his family, the empire of his people, fall into the hands of like a murderous wretch who doesn't care about them. He's really concerned about his people, I think. And so that's why he is okay with being Bahamut in battle, even though he doesn't love the idea of killing your enemies and all that kind of stuff. He's like, okay, I'll do what I need. He will do his duty to protect his people. And so protecting them. Now Joshua would say, hey, there's bigger stuff going on. But Dion is saying, like, part of protecting my people is going to be getting rid of Annabella.
Yes.
And it's crazy. His plan is crazy. Now you can kind of sense it going on.
Yes.
But it's like you don't know how far he's ready to go.
Yes.
You just think, okay, he's got to stick around to make sure Annabella or this kid Olivier don't do anything too crazy, right? But it's like, no, he's got way bigger plans than that.
Way bigger plans. A coup. He has a coup in mind.
So he really does.
Yes.
He was the traitor that Annabella warned about.
The self-fulfilling prophecy we talked about. It's like, the freaking astrologers say the sign is whatever. Right. But it's like, if you didn't treat your son this way in the first place, he wouldn't have any reason to do a coup. Like if you would have just been normal and not made decisions based on this idea that he's going to betray you, then he wouldn't have betrayed you. So you are the one who made the prophecy, not him. Anyway,
Right.
It's just the way prophecies work, which is cool. That's not a criticism. That's the way
it's reading the patterns of reality, the way that they actually exist, and then inferring what a future result will be because of the pattern. And it's like it just means that you're really good at seeing the landscape and determining. I think this is what's going to happen. Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And like the fact that when you believe something to be true, you act in a way that will actually fulfill that.
Yeah.
And had you not believed that, you would have acted in some different way, and the result would have been different.
Right.
So it's not anyway. I think people know what I'm getting at.
Yes.
That's just the way prophecies work. But he's
Joshua.
basically going to take his dragoons and take over the government.
Yeah.
He's like, all right, I can't stand for this anymore. So now we cut back to that.
Well, there's
scene.
one line here too, Joshua, and this is interesting for stuff that's going to happen later. I don't think we're going to get to it today. But Joshua mentions when talking to Dion, and Dion kind of lets him in on the whole situation with Annabella. Joshua then says, well, then the fiend then works from the shadows, is what Joshua says.
Right.
But the concept of the shadow that we talked about before, Ultima influences the shadows. Anyways, that's probably all we're meant to take from that part.
Yes. So we cut back. It's a memory. Dion's
Once again, we see that flower.
Yes.
Though.
Yeah, you're right.
The camera just keeps showing that flower more and more, and I'm just like, what is going on here?
Speaking about all that stuff about the moon, I mean, I'm
Yes.
I'm up through the Odin fight. I'm still waiting for
what's
the moon
happen,
to have
man?
any relevance
I
to this
wonder.
story. But if it doesn't, I'm going to be like gobsmacked. Like, it's not possible that you show the moon that many times and have not an effect on the story. But anyways, I
They're
don't.
just like, hey, isn't the moon cool?
Maybe it's in the last 10% of the story. It'll finally have something relevant to the story. But anyway, we cut back to the scene with Dion and Annabella where we had been cut off before. I know that it is wholly unworthy of the highest offices of state, which rightly belong to those of purer breeding. Alas, your bloodline runs through Oriflamme's gutter. From a whore who weighed her child's worth in Gil. So she's alluding to something that he confirms is correct and that he knew.
The Emperor...
But I wish I knew the full context of this story.
It sounds like the Emperor purchased the child...
Almost.
From the mother, and then said the mother cannot have anything to do with the child.
Or that, like, the mother used this as blackmail against the Emperor.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to tell everybody that you we're
Yeah.
with this whore, the gutter of Oriflame,
Right.
unless you pay me, and then I'll get out of your life and you can have your child, kind of thing.
Right.
That's the only inference I can really gather from what's here. I wish there was a scene. I don't even know where this would. I'm not saying it should be inserted here. It would be the wrong place to do it. But I'm hoping that I just want to see more context. I'm just interested in Dion. Dion
Me
is my
too.
favorite character.
He's a very interesting character. Yeah, I like him a lot.
I like him a lot.
Yeah.
So I would really, really like to know more of his story
Yeah.
and his origins and like how he was brought up and became who he is, how he developed his values and how he was born and the circumstances behind that. I just want to know more about him, just because I like him as a character. But so, have you threatened my father? His response there leads me to believe, okay, she's right, and he's known that all along. He's always known that. She says, of course not. I merely whispered in his ear that his mongrel son is plotting a rebellion. What? Sylvester listens to the words of his astrologers, and they have ears too. So she told the astrologers to tell the emperor that Dion was going. So she paid them off.
Right.
So she's doing exactly what Dion was saying. She is betraying the country, just as she did in Rosario. You have been feeding them your lies. Should you remain loyal to Emperor Olivier, his radiance may yet crown your head with laurel and not with tar. So basically, he gets all upset. You fork-tongued witch, but he thinks better of it, doesn't attack her, steps back. And she says, in consideration of your long years of service to the Empire, I shall forgive this uncharacteristic rudeness. Now hurry and make ready, your Imperial Highness. Emperor Olivier expects much of you, Dion. Or should I say Bahamut. This is all we care about, is the fact that you're Bahamut. May your fire reduce his enemies to ash, till all of Valisthea bows to its rightful ruler. So she leaves and crushes the flower underfoot.
Yes.
As she goes.
This is strange. This is something that Mix in our Discord chat has brought up earlier on. They are, okay, so Annabella is perfectly aware that Bahamut is capable of reducing an entire nation to ash.
We talked about this off camera last week.
Yeah. But
this is the dumbest thing of all time for her to do.
You don't threaten, it's one-on-one, just two people. You don't threaten somebody who is like a god, and you're just like, you were born in a gutter, you suck, I hate you, and maybe if you're lucky, my son will make you some important position while he's the emperor. And it's like, hey, he can murder you. Imagine
the hubris. Imagine the level of hubris you must have to walk up to the most powerful person on earth.
A literal dragon.
A literal god.
Yes. Yes.
And be like, fetch you, guy! Like, you're
I'm better than you,
and you're impure. Like,
you're dirty.
It is bafflingly stupid.
Yes.
To the point to where this has got to be Ultima influencing her somehow.
I would think so too.
Now the game, to the point that I have played, does not really explain how, because she's dead at the end of this sequence.
Yes.
And they kind of just move on from that character.
Right.
She seems to be operating under her own will. We're talking about wills, right?
She just is a horrible person.
We have that line from Byron earlier where he said she has changed to this level that is just, she's not the same woman anymore.
A monster now sits on the throne,
Right? So Ultima is somehow influencing Annabella, because what Ultima wants is for Bahamut to lose his cool, go crazy, and to test Mythos, the vessel.
Of course, yep.
But it makes no sense if Ultima does not have some significant level of control over Annabella. It makes no sense for Annabella's motivations, for what she's after, for her to act this way.
Yeah.
It is absurdly stupid.
She's cunning. She's calculated. She has weaseled her way into these high places through being intelligent and carrying herself a certain way and not making enemies out of extremely powerful people.
Yes.
For her to do this shows a level of stupidity that that is unbecoming for her character. The way that she's written up to this point. You don't become like the Duchess and then after that become the Empress because you don't know how to treat people who are more powerful than you. Clearly I don't know. I would say that this is probably Ultima's doing.
It has to be.
Yeah.
It has to be. I just wish it was a little bit more explained what level of influence Ultima has over her and how that is happening.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think it's like clear mind control in the sense of something like Final Fantasy IV, where characters are just completely fetching mind control and they're not even they have no control of what they're doing. I don't think it's that. But it's got to be something stronger than just some sort of subtle influence. Because there is no way that if she wants Olivier to be emperor and she wants Dion to do what they want, that she would treat him like this.
Right.
This is being done to piss him off to the point of losing it, so that Bahamut can wreck the city.
That reading
and
makes
test
perfect
mythos.
sense. It makes perfect sense.
It's the only thing that could make sense.
It's the only thing. So I guess it's right, because if all other possibilities, however unlikely, the one that remains must be true. Okay, assuming we exhausted all possibilities, I don't think we did, but that would be nice
Possibly
to
not.
get a little read-in from that. But, of course, going back to Joshua's line, that the fiend works from the shadows, right? Now, you say it's probably not a subtle influence on her. I think that's probably true. However,
what it seems to be, but how?
I don't know, dude.
How?
I don't know.
How is it working?
Oh, I'm excited. I'm excited to keep going.
Okay. Anyway, what she's doing is incredibly stupid, but it is what Ultima wants. So from that point of view, it's like that clearly Ultima is influencing all this. So this is, when we cut back to the room where Joshua is, Joshua leaves.
Yeah.
He says, basically, after I have taken care of this stuff
Then
in the
I'm
home
gonna
front,
join you,
you have my full attention. Like,
Right.
I'm all with you on fighting this Ultima person, but right now, like, Annabelle's got to go, and Olivier's got to go. Like, it's got to happen.
And he's right.
He is right.
He's right that can become world destroying if he lets those two continue.
Well, I mean, he literally is fighting Ultima by fighting Annabelle
That's right,
and Olivier. So, I mean, he's just doing it in sort of the immediate local need for that, right? So he's talking to Terrence. He's like, tell me for real, like, do you think what I'm doing is wrong?
Who will you obey? when it comes down to it, who will you obey? Me or the Emperor?
Yeah.
And it's like, you.
It's going to be you. So the Dragoons are first. Their first loyalty is to their commander, not even to the Emperor. So the Emperor does not overrule the Dragoons.
That's very
Their
interesting.
commander does, which is a very strange way
who
to
set it
set
up
up
that way?
I don't think any emperor would want that.
No.
Maybe it was some way of balancing power, like
but then whoever controls the Dragoons will eventually control the Empire.
But they don't control the army. It's just the Dragoons, which are like the elite, sort of like smaller force.
Right.
So it's like, I feel like it may have been, there could be a way to explain this to where it's a way of balancing the power between the emperor, what do they call them? The counselor dudes, the high whatever, so that it's no one entity can do essentially what the emperor is trying to do right now, which is just ruin the whole thing.
Ruin everything.
Somebody could step in the place of a mad king and be like, okay, we're not going to let you hurt the people by making these stupid decisions.
Well, very wise if that was set up that way ahead of time. I just wonder. I mean,
it's the only thing that makes sense to me. Because if it's a total
Chocolate Rob is saying
tyranny.
the Dragoons obey Bahamut, not a commander or emperor.
Right. So
It's
the
but
command.
it's the icon in particular.
I would assume that in this society, thank you for the correction. I would assume in this society that Bahamut is always the commander of the Dragoons.
Because they worship the dragon. Not worship. They revere the dragon.
Yes.
So much so that it's like, hey, you're the emperor, you're cool and all, but he's the dragon.
Yes.
And dragons are like the mascot of our society.
Yes.
So we're with this guy.
But I would assume, and maybe it's in the ATL and I'm wrong about this, but I would assume that Bahamut is always the Dragoon commander. I mean, whoever Bahamut is that guy.
Yeah.
And maybe that's passed in the royal family the same way it is in Rosaria. It always kind of stays in the same family. And so it always seems to be the prince or whatever, or emperor. I guess that's true. Is the emperor ever Bahamut in this society?
Oh, yeah. Well, in that case.
It would have been Dion.
Yeah.
At some point.
So then he would be emperor and
the commander of the Dragoons.
Ooh,
or would he have passed that?
You know what? That would have given him unusually an unusual amount of power.
Yes.
Dion would have been more powerful than the Emperor in that sense, politically, given that he would then have the command of the secret guard as well as
the whole
empire.
empire.
Interesting. Yeah, I wonder.
We're getting in the weeds.
Because it's lineage through the Empire, so I'm sure that happened, or the Emperor, so I'm sure that happens a lot.
In a way that's probably not necessary, but
yeah, maybe not.
It's interesting to think about. I wonder how this works. Okay, so
Gosh.
The next thing we see is
the city's on fire.
Jill and Clive and Goots have gotten in there, and they're kind of staying in or whatever, and then just people start panicking, and Bahamut is just destroying everything.
The little potion girl's there.
Yep, she is.
She's freaking out. Everyone's scared. But yeah, Bahamut is just losing it. Kind of the way Phoenix was at the beginning of the game. Yeah. Just kind of flying around and just breaking things.
We got Tough Ham here saying the Emperor isn't always Bahamut. The ATL states that Sylvester won his throne only when Dion awoke to Bahamut. So somebody else had the throne before Sylvester, so he didn't inherit it.
I see.
So there's not a lineage, a loyal family lineage. It's
so Bahamut it just follows the dragon. Interesting.
That's actually really interesting. Now we go back to the whole conversation with
about
the woman.
Dion and the prostitute.
Yes.
Was maybe the Emperor's not the father either?
This is just creating more questions. This is not clarifying anything to me.
That's crazy. Okay. Well, I'm sure sometime it'll get resolved. There may be an ATL on that we haven't read yet. So. At the end of the game, we are going to have to go through so many misconceptions at the end of this game. This wasn't right. This probably isn't it either. I don't know about this. They didn't explain this. They did explain this, and we got it wrong. I'm sure that's going to happen.
For all you lore heads out there, right?
Lore heads.
We've said kind of over and over again on this podcast that like lore is not really the point.
Not really.
We're here for theme. Yeah. We're here for philosophy. We're here for kind of the underpinning message of the thing. Yeah, what is this story really about?
The way information's presented.
So I'm not really like a big lore dude. I think it's interesting, but to me, its purpose is to make a world feel convincing and believable. It's not like the point of consuming the product to me. So I was really good about keeping up on every ATL entry until a certain point. I want to say probably around the time we were leading up to the Titan fight, where there was just so much. I was just like, dude, this is going to take 2 hours to read. Like, I don't have that kind of time. I got to freaking make progress in the game. I got a podcast I have to prepare for. But that's part of it is reading it, and there's just not enough time. So anyway, there's probably a lot of stuff in the ATL that I don't know because I have literally not been looking at it for probably the last 12 or 14 hours. I'll tell you what,
at the end of I'll read through all of them at the end of the game and just get everything, and then we'll have an ATL
episode
addendum to the podcast.
That's actually a good idea. We should just have an ATL final episode or something like that,
where we just go through all the A and the T and the L, all the L. There's so much.
All the L. We need there's a lot of L to catch up on.
Way too much.
But anyway, we'll kind of return to some of these points and clarify them once we've read for what is available to be clarified. Sometimes the ATL's kind of been disappointing to me, where I've had a certain question. I've gone to the ATL specifically to look for an answer to that question, and it's not really there.
Right.
And it's like the one time where I needed that tool to work, it didn't work. So then I ignored even more, and it created more of a problem. But Bahamut's going berserk here.
He is, and the moon is almost half moon. It's still a bit of a crescent, and I'm bringing it up in hopes that it's relevant at some point in the future. But almost half, but a slightly crescent moon. That's what's happening. And then the chapter title is called Fire in the Sky, which sounds like a phoenix.
I took a really cool screenshot for Twitter where I framed, because it's when Clive gets on the rooftops.
That's pretty cool.
The crystal. You can see the spires of the buildings.
I saw this
and
image.
then you can see the moon, and I framed it all like in between the characters. It's a freaking dope shot.
Nice.
I really like that feature, by the way, where you can just pause the game and then go orient your camera and take cool pictures and stuff.
Yeah,
freaking cool. All games should have that.
They should.
You can make really cool thumbnails this way. Anyway, so they're trying to make their way over to where Goots is at in the midst of all this destruction. Like Joshua ends up priming, and so Phoenix and Bahamut are out. He's what Joshua's trying to do is lead Bahamut away, distract him,
so
stop him from killing
so
many people.
Yeah,
right.
The people will lose faith in their dragon in their in Bahamut after this. So that's very destructive.
So they're up there doing their battle in the sky while Clive is making his way to find Goots. They eventually find him. Then they're like, well, now's a good opportunity to go destroy this crystal. I mean, we're right here.
Yeah.
There's a distraction, perfect distraction going on. Let's get in there and destroy this crystal. So they're making their way there. But then he sees, oh, Joshua's here. This is crazy.
Right. That's right. We got
to help him.
He hadn't met Joshua yet.
So it's just the whole situation is like building up to this boiling point. It's just getting crazier and crazier.
Yeah.
The stakes are really high. I really like it. And then they run into Annabella and Olivier like on the way there. And this scene was great. I mean, just running into your mother and like her new kid randomly, not expecting it like that.
I know, that
in
was
the
so
middle
strange.
of this battle where your brother is fighting Bahamut, who is like traditionally like the most powerful freaking summon.
Yeah.
Almost always. In this game, it's more Odin than Bahamut, but I think they're probably pretty equal.
Yeah.
But still, like your brother is fighting Bahamut. Phoenix is not a match for Bahamut.
Right.
In Final Fantasy terms. I gotta help him. I gotta destroy this crystal. All these things are attacking me. There's a Kashik everywhere.
Yeah.
Like there's ether floods. And then my freaking mom, who betrayed us, is just right here with her new kid.
And
like,
we haven't seen her since, right?
This is some crazy stakes going on right now.
That was wild.
This is some emotional roller coaster. Right? I can't imagine what he must be feeling just running into her after all those years, all that time to stew and the revenge and everything. She's the one that, betrayed us. Mother? And I love her response. She looks to him, it's you. It's not like condescending yet. It will become that way.
It takes 2 seconds.
But she sees an opportunity. Oh my goodness, you could save me.
She does, but why does she ruin it for herself so quickly?
Again, it's got to be Ultima.
I was like, oh, she's smart. She knows the situation. Nope, she doesn't. She's insulting the most powerful person who's going to burn her to death.
It's got to be Ultima trying to rev up Mythos to fight Bahamut.
Does Ultima just have carte blanche over any human in the world? And
I don't know.
Because if so, he's doing a very poor job. He could do much better, I think.
I don't know. I don't know what Ultima is capable of. And this is the whole thing about soft magic we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
And somebody was saying, oh, it sounds like you don't like soft magic systems. Soft magic systems are fine. I love Lord of the Rings. Lord of the Rings is soft magic.
It's very
mysterious. Never
mysterious
explain the magic.
how that magic works, But
magic never solves problems in Lord of the Rings. Gandalf doesn't just come up and just like wave a wand and then their problem is solved.
Right.
So this is part of Sanderson's law in terms of like how to, create magic systems. If you're going to have magic solve like a key plot point or problem or a conflict, then the magic should be explained. What are its limits? How does it work?
Right.
So I just don't understand what is happening with Ultima being trapped inside of Joshua.
Yeah,
what are the limits now placed on Ultima? And how is he breaking through those limits? And what would he have been able to do had he not been in Joshua's cage? Right. Like what is he actually capable of? I have no fetching idea.
And why does he have to inhabit Annabella and then manipulate the Emperor? He could just be the Emperor. He could just be... If he can control these people to this level, he can just do this to all sorts of people.
Yeah.
Now, one of the maybe answers is that Annabella, her shadow, has such a grip on her. It controls her to such a high degree because of her
you just figured it out,
awful nature. I think I may have. But
Ultima
we'll see.
controls the shadows of people.
Yes.
or influences people through their shadows.
Yes. And if you have a good, decent handle on your shadow, then Ultima doesn't have
power. You
can
resist Ultima.
Right, and that's Joshua's line. Then I guess the fiend works in the shadows, right?
Listen, that's not
is that it?
That's not it, but that's way better than whatever it is.
I know. That's probably true.
I love that explanation.
I see, and I think that's not it either, because I played enough of the game to think that, like, okay, I don't know what's going on here, but I don't think it's that. But it would be sweet if it was.
It would be so sweet. That would literally be the coolest of magic and tie into philosophy of all time. That'd be super.
And then
sweet.
that way you just manipulate the shadow, and then the people, to the extent that the people allow the shadow to rule their lives, then that's the extent to which Ultima can control them.
I love that.
Which is why Ultima can't just jump into anybody, right? It's got to be somebody who is just such a bad person, like Annabella.
Yes.
Somebody who just like thinks they're high and mighty, just horribly prejudiced,
and never self-reflective. They'll never admit.
Never. Yeah. Well, see that, but that's part of dealing with your shadow. Is admitting.
Yes.
Because she's like, oh, I'm so noble, you're dirty, I'm noble. She would never admit that she might be a little bit dirty.
Yes.
She would never admit that.
Yes.
Everything she does is perfectly pure and prime. The trouble being is that nobody's really like that, and so that means that
I love your idea
has
so much
not
more.
yet confronted the shadow in an obvious way.
That would be such a perfect tie-in, dude. That would be so good because it's like Ultima's power over you is tied to, are you willing to admit and integrate that part of you don't want to believe is you. And her whole thing, even going back, she talks about how in this scene how shameful it was to be talked about by your lessers.
That's right.
Like she will not accept that she's not equal to other people, that she's not better.
She refuses.
And so because she's refusing her shadow, Ultima can control her. That would be sweet as an explanation for Ultima's influence and power and what he can do. And it's definitely not right, but I wish it was, because that would be, I would buy that in a second. That would be perfectly tied to what I feel the theme of the game, at least early on, was going for. But anyway, probably not right.
Probably not. She's just awful. Like after about 2 seconds, she just shows up and she's just like, "Oh yeah, you're dirty and I hate you. You've got the lines here."
Yeah. So at first, she's trying to kind of appeal to him. What happened here? He asks her. He tried to take him from me. Oh, my boy, my darling, darling boy. She's like doting over this little child. I'm
this
sure
dull,
it's just
not human person.
Gotta just be
for
so
Clive.
infuriating for Clive, right? Is this the child you made with the Emperor? Why, mother? Why did you betray us all? And she says to him, "You have no right to ask me that." And I love how it's just.
I thought of Thor and
What are you
Oakenshield.
doing?
I have the only right. That's all I could think of. Like, are you kidding me, dude? She ruined his dreams.
The one person on Earth who has the right to ask that question is standing in front of you right now. And I love how Jill draws her sword and just backs her up. Answer him, We took you in, savage. Show some respect for those who raised you. And she just keeps pressing, So showing her, you're talking like as if you have some control over the situation.
I know, these are two icons that are these two gods, and you're like,
what are you doing?
I know, it's so unbelievable. Then she becomes very upfront. She's just very forthcoming about like, it's good that I killed your dad. And anyways, it's
so she says, honorable Elwyn, always thinking of his precious homeland, but what worth is a homeland in a world beset by the blight? And Clive says, Father did not seek to protect his country. He sought to protect his people.
Right.
She says, a leader's duty is not to protect its people, or his people. It's to protect the source of his sovereignty. What the fetch? The noble blood that runs in his family's veins. So long as the bloodline remains unbroken, what does it matter if a nation falls? You can always found another. Unlike him, I did my duty. I preserved my line. I bore a son of the noblest blood, to whom the whole world might kneel. But it's interesting saying that now. If Sylvester was not the son of an emperor, I have more questions. Mm-hmm. But that my line might join with the Lesages, because she was of the bloodline where the phoenix can be born. So now we've well, I guess that's why she considers him noble blood, because in his bloodline is the Bahamut. So Bahamut and Phoenix bloodlines are now being united. That is why I gave Rosaria to Sanbreque, that I might join the line of the Lesages with a birth and birth a savior of this benighted land, blessed by both Bahamut and the Phoenix.
Right. That's
So her idea of fixing this problem with the blight is having, like, basically birthing a savior of two incredibly powerful bloodlines. That's, I guess, what she thought she was doing. You sold your country for a child. Why did you need another? You had Joshua. She says, I had nothing. You were always your father's son, so very strong and bold and daring, and yet you failed to awaken. Would that Joshua had been granted a tenth of your strength.
Right, because she now knows, Ifrit's really powerful.
Well,
right? She
I think even before the Ifrit awakening,
mean just his skill in battle?
As a knight, his personality, he had this great strength to him. And she had wished that's where Phoenix should have awakened. Why did Phoenix awaken in this weak child?
Yeah.
So she even had some resentment for Joshua for not being strong like Clive.
Right.
But more resentment for Clive for not being the Phoenix. This sucks. Like, you should have been, the powerful kid should have been the one that get Phoenix. Why was it the weak one? And she's like, you two ruined it. Like, why?
See, and then she's got this third kid who, in my opinion, is weaker than Joshua. Just, really? Do I have to go to a council meeting? Oh, man. And, like, this kid who does nothing, and she just thinks that he's the greatest thing in the world.
Yeah.
Weaker than Joshua, as far as I could tell.
Yeah. So, she throws a goblet at Clive, just bounce harmlessly off him. Like literally, what is this?
She can't help it, I guess.
I guess at this
point,
point,
even to protect her son is there with her.
Yeah.
She should be groveling at his feet.
I know.
Don't murder my child.
Yes.
But instead, she's like, "Ew, I'm so mad at you, and how dare you?" And like, it just doesn't. Her character shouldn't be doing this. I don't think her character should be doing this
because
maybe one-on-one.
She's being
certainly not in
controlled
front of her
by
child.
Ultima through the shadow, dude. She won't admit.
Yeah.
The problem here, what she's done, and so Ultima is getting her to goad Mythos into priming to fight Bahamut.
So she's just
that's I'm accepting this as canon now, because it makes 100,000 times more sense for Annabella to be this dumb if it's the fact that she won't integrate the shadow and through that Ultima can influence and control her. I love that idea. So I'm just accepting it. It's canon to me now.
If there's anybody in this whole game who refuses to face their shadow, it's Annabella.
Yes. Okay. How the nobles laughed that Elwyn's firstborn was surely the son of a concubine, and my own not long for this world. So, meaning Joshua was sick and would probably die early.
And then the reason Clive didn't get the Phoenix was because she's not his real mom.
Right.
Like,
the shame of it, the shame of being slandered by one's inferiors. How could you ever know how that feels?
Poor
I don't care how you feel. It should have been you. Why didn't the Phoenix choose you? And Joshua's every waking moment was spent trying to shoulder the burden that you and the Phoenix and the duchy foisted on him. That's why I became his shield, to help bear the weight. Yeah. But what did you do? I love this, by the way. I love this line. And even just going back to touching on some people who had they didn't love the idea of introducing the jealousy into Clive.
Right. Yeah,
I still am telling you, I love this. Yeah. I love this for being his reason. I love the fact that Clive and Joshua genuinely, deeply care for each other, and that he didn't allow whatever jealousy he was having, which he would have pushed down,
suppressed,
right, and said like, nope.
Yeah,
I really care about him in my conscious brain, in which I think and reason and have rational thoughts.
That 2% of your brain,
This one that is in control of me, I love Joshua, and I'm going to help him bear this weight. Like, I'm not going to hold it against him, right? I love that.
Yeah, that's
cool. He would have every reason to be outwardly jealous.
Yeah.
And that shows the strength of his character to be like, no, like, I'm going to help him bear the weight, and that's a fine role to take on. That's a noble role to take on. I embrace that role, right? But what did you do? You betrayed your own blood and surrendered your son to his fate. And she says, oh, Joshua, my darling boy, I never meant to hurt him. The soldiers' orders were clear. He was meant to be spared. Why did you survive when the only one I truly cared for died? And at this point, she's saying the dumbest thing she could probably say. What? Have you not looked out the window? Joshua is here. The Phoenix lives on. He's battling Bahamut as we speak.
Now. Yeah.
Are you crazy? How have you not noticed this yet?
Well, there are certain There are certain truths that people who have done horrible things can never face or fess up to.
Yes.
And we see this later on with Annabella. At the end, she never really recognizes Joshua.
Yes.
She just is like, no, you're a ghost. And who knows? She's probably been haunted by the ghost of Joshua this whole time.
Yes.
And just like, but she just
Clearly
will not
she
admit
feels
that
bad.
she did anything wrong.
Yeah.
Otherwise, she'd be like, oh, Joshua's alive? Oh my gosh, I did everything to help you. Instead, she knows how awful she's been. And she can't, even when he's back. She's just like, no, you died. You died.
Mm-hmm.
You died. You can't be here. Because if you're alive, that means I'm a bad person.
Yes.
So you can't be alive.
Yes.
It means
right?
I'm a bad mother.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's
it means I abandoned my child.
She doesn't want to admit
she
or
will
accept
never
this.
admit her own shadow. She will never admit any of
Yes.
this. Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Yes.
But I'm getting ahead of myself because
Okay.
that comes a little bit later.
So now we get Joshua comes basically busting through the wall as this happens, as Phoenix and transforms back into his human form, and he's bleeding and unconscious. And Clive says, I am a shield of Rosaria, and I will do my duty. And he primes into Ifrit. And I love
He
this.
primes quicker. He's like...
He's in control of it.
Yeah,
now.
he's good at it. Yeah.
He's got full control of Ifrit at this point. And I loved this because the buildup is like, he is pumped. It was almost like that same energy in which he approached Hugo Kupka. Like,
oh, yeah,
I am going to beat you. I'm stronger than you.
Yeah.
Like all this. You have that energy of Clive preparing to fight. And then Bahamut just proceeds to kick the ever-living fetch out of him immediately. I loved that.
That's right.
Because it's like, you feel like, okay, here we go. Oh, I was not ready for that.
His face gets like dragged on the ground and thrown up into the air.
I was not ready to fight Bahamut. I take it back.
I'm not a shield of Rosaria.
No, obviously not take it back, but just the realization, this dude's a lot fetching stronger than I thought.
This is crazy. It's unbelievable how strong Bahamut is.
And what I love about it is that the only way that they defeat Bahamut is for Clive and Joshua to fight
like
together.
merge together. That was pretty cool.
The Phoenix and Ifrit have it's 2 against 1. This is a very unfair fight.
Yes.
It's 2 icons against Bahamut.
Yeah.
And Bahamut still probably would have killed them both had they not done their Dragon Ball Z fusion
nice.
later on in the fight. But I loved that. I love how powerful it makes Bahamut.
Yeah.
Like right off the bat. It's like
That's right.
Clive cannot defeat Bahamut.
Yeah.
And maybe Mythos can become strong enough at a certain point.
Sure.
But part of that is he needs Bahamut's strength to be powerful enough.
Yeah, he needs the blessing.
Like, he's just not... Bahamut's way more powerful than the 2 of them. So they have to work together. And I liked how you switch in the fight between an Ifrit battle, and then you're fighting as the Phoenix for a while.
Yeah, that was cool.
And you go back to Ifrit again.
Yeah.
And then in the climax of this, they do their merge, and then you're fighting in outer space.
Yes.
Which is crazy.
Well, there's some symbolism to that. We'll get to the fight.
Let's break it down. Or unless there's something you have before that.
I don't have much. Well, actually, I have a ton of stuff, because I'm actually going all the way back to when he first destroyed when Bahamut first tried to destroy the crystal.
Yes.
Wasn't that interesting?
I wondered if that was on purpose or if that was...
know either.
He was just a bunch of energy came out, and one happened to like graze the heart of the crystal, and then the crystal felt threatened, and then it reforms into the flower.
Yes, and then it shows the flower, which was really cool. But it seemed like Bahamut was intentionally trying to destroy the crystal heart.
Yeah, I could see that. To me, either way, I could see that being true.
But then this shield, shows up, and then we see like the true form of the crystal, which is really beautiful. It was really cool. Kind of reminded me of a Nier. Or something like that. Where
totally.
This flower blossoms over the city.
Giant flower.
Yeah, really, really fun. But also, as we go in to destroy the Mother Crystal, Jill says, "There's no more roads here." And then Clive says, "I guess we'll just have to forge our own path." Mm-hmm. So I feel like that's a little bit of the games theme kind of showing up here.
I will say this, though. If there is such a thing as too much spectacle...
Yeah, this might have been it. This might have been it. Yes. I really liked the Kupka fight.
Yeah. That was like walking towards the line of where, there's another phase. It just keeps going.
Yeah.
I've heard some other people online saying, this fight felt too long, the Kupka fight. I thought the Titan fight was great. It was like just the right amount. This one stepped a little bit over that edge of being like, okay, this is too crazy for me. Yeah. This is getting like out of control here. Like, this is really, really, really too far, I feel like, spectacle-wise. Not that that's a bad thing necessarily. It's just that there's only so much your senses can take at one time.
Yes, for sure.
And you need you need to pace that out a little bit.
I realized this. I realized this was with music because I would listen to all sorts of music back when, I don't know, 20 years ago or so. That was just like go time all the time.
Yes,
right.
Constantly.
And I can't listen to that anymore. No. I just can't. No. And I get, if you're young and it's just like, yeah, go man, go hard, don't stop, like let's do it. But at the same time, like there's a song. I think this is the song that killed hair metal. If anybody wants to know my opinion on that, Steelheart made a song called "Late for the Party," and it has like 6 different guitar solos in it, like throughout, and it's a
great analogy.
It's just madness.
It's a great analogy.
Well, I equate it to like a fireworks show.
Yeah.
Right. Because when I was younger, I'm just like, man, it should be grand finale all the time, dude.
Yes.
A 20 minutes grand finale, right?
Yes.
Give it to me. And the older I get, the more I'm just like, that would not be fun.
No.
I don't think it would be fun. I would leave. I would maybe be able to stand it for like 2 minutes before I'm just like, okay, like way too much. Come on, give me something that pace it out a little bit.
Yes.
Give me a story to your show, right?
Yes.
Because grand finale is not a story. Like,
yes.
The climax of an arc isn't a story in and of itself,
no.
right? You need all the other parts of it, right? You need dynamic range and variance, and what's the audio term? The
Well, yeah, dynamic range.
Is it dynamic range?
Yeah.
Okay, I feel like that's like a film.
It's a film term as well. But.
Okay, perfect. You need that in order to have texture, in order to actually feel like you're interacting with something instead of just being, inundated with a flood of information. So it just overwhelms the senses. So that's probably the best way that I could explain it. But I feel like the Kupka fight was kind of doing that too, though. And a lot of this comes down to the music. So the music in the Kupka fight, it didn't really change much. It just kind of was that track, this super repetitious, just like, and it was really cool. Yeah. But after 20 minutes, it's like, and I'm not even saying I got sick of it. That fight was really cool.
Yeah.
But they keep wanting to one-up it now. And I'm seeing this with Bahamut. I'm seeing the one-upping, and the only reason why the next fight might be harder than this one is because they had to do stuff to make it like we were fighting with Phoenix, and I don't know exactly how the next fights are going to go. But Bahamut was incredibly powerful, and we had to do things to make Bahamut weaker so that we could fight him. But it does seem to kind of keep carrying on that like grand finale. And a lot of the fights are seeming like that now, too.
Yeah.
Every time I fight, it's just like flashes of brilliance and numbers and many numbers, so many numbers.
A lot of numbers.
Just
numbers
all
flying
over the
everywhere.
screen. But I feel like pacing is super important. Now, as far as this battle with Bahamut goes, the music is really good. So Mix shared with me a 25-minute video of
we got some
guy.
Lyrics here too.
Yes, and I've got the lyrics. We're going into all of this.
Great.
The song is really well done, but there's this guy, I can't remember his name, but he is a classically trained musician.
Yes,
right.
I know what you're talking about. I did. Yes.
Okay, he kind of goes over the movements of this piece. And it talks about Vivaldi's Winter and Bach and a lot of the Baroque influences and where a lot of this is coming from. And Richard Wagner's idea of total art, which he considered to be opera, right? Where it's all of the different art pieces combine into this one thing that's like the perfect spectacle. And as far as we're talking about spectacle here with Bahamut, that is this experience, right? It is total art happening all at once here. It's just a bit overwhelming, and then you have the interactive element, which video games provide, which makes it takes it over the top, right? Yeah. Goes even further in terms of that. But the pieces start out more grounded, but you have that operatic kind of tone to it, and then of course the battle ends up in outer space, right? Yeah. And the music kind of accompanies it as well, but it's got this like melancholy tone to it as well that's happening. And let's read the lyrics because I wrote them all down, and this is absolutely crazy. Are we here yet, or should I just jump into this?
Go for it.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So here's the lyrics for the song. It says, "On the wings of an angel, forsaken our destinies lie." So that sounds like Prometheus or Lucifer or the morning star, right? So the forsaken angel, our destiny lies on the wings of the forsaken angel, right? So that's Prometheus, right? In courage and conviction throughout the night, we find our redemption, we find our light. So this is throughout the night, given us by the light bringer, right? So essentially we find our courage and conviction through the night. We find our redemption, we find our light in the night. So what is the light in the night? It would be the brightest star, which would be the morning star, or the evening star, or the moon. It could easily be the moon.
Metia, the star, the red
or
star.
it could be Metia, of course. So the light is what's given to us by the light bringer, but that is where we find our courage and our conviction, right? So very Gnostic Christian / ancient Greek, understanding there. The next one is that we may make our ascension, which I equate to that we may become as gods.
Yep.
We shall become as gods, right?
Yep.
The burden-shouldered, 7 worlds of teardrops falling into the sea, bitter seeds these, ere yearning to be free. And I say free from the gods, right? That's what's happening
free from
here.
the crystals.
Because that's the whole point of the Promethean stories, right? It's like, free us from the gods, please.
Yep.
So then the next one, Holy Mother, set us free. Now, this is where it gets really interesting to me. The Holy Mother, this is Bahamut. We're in I guess it's crystalline dominion, but we're dealing with the Sanbreque Empire, right? Holy Mother would be the goddess Grieger, I think.
In this case.
Right.
Yeah.
So Holy Mother set us free. Now,
or the mother could just be several times.
The land
mother
could be
crystals.
the mother. Or
the mother
crystals
themselves.
So the crystals set us free. Okay, that's possible. Well, maybe we can bring multiple readings into that. Holy Mother, set us free, strike our irons, be our solace, temperance, virtue, and vengeance. Now, that last one, vengeance, that's very interesting. Mm-hmm. But the idea here that the mother will free us from the gods and bring vengeance against the gods. I think that's what it's saying here. Now, the mother could be the crystals. It could be the goddess Grieger. Then firmament over us, fundament beneath us, and that's the heaven and the earth. Take flight into the starry heavens, on high celestial procession, fire on ruby mountaintop to guide us to the word of God, the goddess. Solace, temperance, virtue, ascension. So instead of vengeance, it's ascension, which means once you've taken your vengeance, then you can ascend, right? So, but then when it says fire on ruby mountaintop, I don't know what a lot of this is saying, but that sounds something like the red star by the moon, something like that, right? Metia, I don't know. We might be giving too much credence to the moon and the red star. But the the moon itself is associated with the goddess in some way. Guide our spirits ever higher. This is speaking to the Holy Mother. Guide our spirits ever higher and 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 higher. 8 times. To endless heights, higher, ever higher, the infinite, right? Up until the endless above. On wings of faith, we'll rise again. And this is where it gets really interesting. On wings of faith, we'll rise again. So rise again after the fallen ones. So rising again, right? So the ones have fallen, but we are going to take up their mantle and reascend, right? Mm-hmm. And the faith would then be in ourselves or faith in the goddess, that she'll be able to give us this power. But ware ye the madness that breeds inside us. So beware of, this means, but check your shadow, the madness within, right? So on wings of faith will rise again. Ware ye the madness that breeds inside us. Tides of fury, flowing, ebbing, mists of madness, whirling, wending, veil of nothing, never ending. Dare not seek what lurketh down beneath. No. This is talking about the shadow, in my opinion. This is clearly talking about the shadow, right? So it's like, hey, we have this great potential, but there's also something going on with all of us that's really bad, and beware of it, right? And do not seek what lurketh down beneath. Now, that may preclude some type of shadow work, but
especially if Ultima controls people through the shadows.
Sure, there you go. So just don't touch it.
But
you can't not touch it. You have to integrate it anyway. Yeah. So this is an interesting injunction to dare not seek what lurketh down beneath. This describes the madness brewing within us, the endless nothing. Don't seek for it. This line makes me wonder what exactly it's saying. We will rise, but beware of the fury, madness, and nothingness below. And I think that's the shadow, the evil hiding from the sun. Right, and this is the next part. An evil hiding from the sun, blinding he screameth, eschaton, imminent. So the evil hiding from the sun is the shadow, right? The sun is too bright, but the shadow screams that it will bring about the end. The word eschaton is referring to the apocalypse, the end of days, right? The end of everything, coming to a point. And that is the end. That is all the lyrics of the song. But the way the song progresses through the fight is really good, because at the beginning, you've just got the wings of an angel. That could be Bahamut, but I'm going to say that this has more reference to Prometheus and, the Lightbringer. And the courage of convictions that we can become as gods. Isn't this great? Then the next movement is all about Holy Mother, set us free, talking about the mother, talking about revenge, and then what the mother can do. And then we reascend. But this last part is all about, like, hey, beware of that shadow, dude. It will ruin everything. We've got these high goals, but the madness within you, like, don't look down, right? And it's cool because it's not just madness. This also makes very specific. Veil of nothing, never ending. That a veil of nothing, right? So a veil is a thing that covers you, right? Well, the veil is the nothingness, right? And it is endless, right? And so you also have to beware of the nothingness that exists in the universe. Like look out. Not only is there madness, there's also nothing, and that's just freaky, right? That's really scary. Don't seek what lurks down beneath. So this last part, talking about that, this is more, I feel like this would be more towards the end of the fight. We're in the void of space. We're in the vacuum of space fighting.
Yes,
but
right.
also, we have risen. We have ascended. Like the ascent of the song, of the lyrics here, is when we ascend, right? But then beware of what happens after that, right? Beware of the nothingness. Beware of the shadow, essentially. The evil hiding from the sun, because the end is near, right? And then, of course, everything comes crashing back down to earth, and that's the end of the fight.
Yeah.
And I don't know that the song necessarily plays, and it's really hard to tell. The lyrics basically had to be published.
Right.
I don't think anybody would have heard those words
Yeah.
necessarily. But geez, man, that song was really good. At reading this, I felt like I was reading like from the Book of Psalms or something. Like this was
really
deep,
well written.
really well written,
Really good,
really cool, and it seems coherent from what I know of the world. And I'm just really excited to see exactly where they go with all of this.
I wonder
the way the music and the lyrics and the fight all work together to bring you this like high spectacle was really, really cool. I absolutely loved it.
I wonder if the part about the wings might be referring to Phoenix's wings, but specifically in conjunction
angel?
with the Ifrit and when Ifrit and Phoenix combine.
That's interesting.
Right. Because you have Ifrit that feels more like a fallen angel type figure than Phoenix does, but when they're combined into the Phoenix Ifrit icon,
then it's the wings of a forsaken angel that in which our destinies lie. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. I wonder if that's part of the reference, or if that could be interpreted as that way. I don't know for sure, but that's a possibility, I guess.
Yeah.
Anyway,
it's crazy.
One thing I did like, though, was that whether intentional or not, this kind of paid homage to the Bahamut Zero summon in Final Fantasy VII. Remember that one? So it's 3 different Bahamut summons in Final Fantasy VII. There's like the regular Bahamut,
right,
which just shoots a beam out of its mouth.
Yeah.
And then there's Bahamut Neo, I think, which like the Earth gets like taken up into the sky.
I remember
and
that.
like a bigger one, it blows that away, and the whole thing crumbles. And then there's Bahamut Zero, which is the 3rd Bahamut summon, where he goes into space.
Yes.
And comes back down and like blows a freaking hole through the planet.
And then does 1,000 damage.
Right.
It doesn't even kill the enemy.
It was so funny.
Yeah,
but I kind of got vibes of Bahamut Zero from this fight in outer space.
In outer space.
Yeah, which is kind of cool. I don't know if that was purposeful, but it seemed to be a reference to that to me. But
what did you think about the many tutorials that kept popping up during the battle?
Yeah, I guess
I'm like, we're 20-something hours into this game.
They've done that for each. Because they do that for each fight, because they're always introducing a new element to the icon's abilities.
They do, which means at the final boss of this game, they're still going to be getting tutorials.
Yeah.
Because each time, that's just what happens.
That's the thing about
how
tutorials. It's hard to say, because there's a part of me that really believes I would be 100% down for just erasing all tutorials, just period. Like, just allow people to figure it out.
Yeah.
Or
we did it back in the 90s.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. I was raised on games where they didn't necessarily tutorialize you on anything. Right. Also, those games were much more simple in a lot of ways than games are today.
3D.
But there's another part of me that understands that would probably be frustrating for the average player. to not, what do I do? I don't understand. Not everybody can deal with that. One game that sort of I felt did a pretty good job with this of all things, because Xenoblade 2 I think is terrible in how it tutorializes, but Xenoblade Chronicles X basically put an entire all of its tutorial in the menu and almost never tutorialized you on anything
unless you intentionally sought it out
into the menu and look it up.
And then it's not breaking anything.
But there's also kind of a problem with that, because I feel like a lot of people won't do that, and then they'll just miss out on all kinds of abilities that are even possible that you just don't happen to figure out.
That's true, yeah.
Right?
That's true.
So
there's got to be a way to learn it.
My mind is kind of mixed on this. It's tutorials I can see from one side, or one philosophy on it being really necessary to, your player needs to know that this is possible to do.
Right.
And are they going to seek that information out? I don't know for sure, but I can at least put it in front of their eyes.
Yeah.
And make it short. Yeah. Right? It's just 2 short pages and it's over.
Short. Yeah.
So I'm okay with it the way it is, because they're not long tutorials. Yeah. It's not like I have to read 5 pages of text.
No, sometimes it's 1 or 2. Sometimes it's 2.
Yeah.
But Tough Ham brought up something in our Discord. He said that sometimes that the tutorial kind of spoils the fight. It tells you what's going to happen. Okay, when he comes to punch you, you're going to push the button. It's I didn't know he was going to do that.
That's a fair point.
And then you watch it happen without any of the surprise of that. But then how would you have dealt with it without the tutorial? I don't know. They just have their action time.
Well, I mean, when we were kids, you would just die. And then you just learn, okay, I don't do that.
Deal.
I have to try again.
Right.
And that was just part of the game. You died a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of how Souls games are. It's just they just kind of. I mean, there's a little bit of tutorialization in the very beginning, but
I expected.
But those are optional too, because they're usually messages written on the ground that you have to go interact with, and you could just run past them. You know, so I would say personally, the way I like it is more like the way we grew up, or the way FromSoft handles tutorials, which are make them optional and make them really short.
It's just weird at 25 hours into a game, and it's
I think it's valid
tutorials
that maybe the average player, that's not the best way to help them understand how to play. Mm-hmm. And you shouldn't be, you should make the choice that will benefit the highest amount of players possible. I don't have enough data to have an informed opinion on this, so that's all I can say.
Okay.
Okay, there's a really good reunion scene between Clive and Joshua and Jill when this is all over. But this again kind of brought me back to, why didn't Joshua come to Clive way earlier than this? Why was he literally in the same space? Yeah. I mean, he was there when he went to the Phoenix Gate.
Right.
He was watching him from the shadows.
But
why
he was also in that hotel when they had
why did he run away?
He was like, got to get away from Clive. Why? Yeah.
What was the purpose? I still don't know.
No, and I've played a bit past this as well.
I've played way past this. Yeah. And he doesn't ask him about it. Huh. There's no conversation about it. Help me, people who have read every ATL message. Why did Joshua avoid coming to Clive for so long?
Yeah.
What was the point of avoiding him? Other than, I don't know, it made the story more mysterious up to this point, which is his point.
That's what the collector said.
I mean, that's the cynical way of looking at it. But really, truly, I want to know, is there an explanation for that? Because this is also part of the reason why I even brought up the idea of there being some unconscious level jealousy or contention between them.
Because they can't face each other.
Because why is Joshua not just going straight to him and reuniting right away and being like, you don't need to take revenge. I'm still alive. Yeah. Everything's cool.
It's weird when you're running away from someone and then they catch you and they don't even ask why you were running.
I know.
You don't tell them. And you're just like, oh, you got me. So how you been, man? What? Why were you running?
I know. Why didn't you come sooner? And I thought there would be an explanation. Well, Clive, maybe it's because he's got mythos in him, right? And he doesn't want, he doesn't want, Joshua has Ultima in him. And he doesn't want to bring Ultima to Clive. But that explains why he wouldn't have come to him in the 5-year time scale.
But what about now?
But what about before that? before
see.
Ultima had been taken into him. Why didn't he talk to him at Phoenix Gate?
Yeah.
I don't know. And I don't feel like any adequate explanation has been given. That he doesn't have
Why
any
he's
reason
running.
to have done that.
Yeah.
Did somebody say
there
something
was
here?
one that said, well, in the hotel, Yote didn't exactly say who it was, that it was Clive. Yote just said, oh, there's people fighting, they're looking for us, and then he jumped out the window. But he had clearly been avoiding Clive this whole time. And so I don't think that answers the whole question.
Yeah. Okay, fine. Post time skip, let's say he didn't want to bring Ultima anywhere near
Right,
Clive.
yeah.
But why at Phoenix Gate earlier when he was still in his little brown hood watching and going, oh no, the hour is later than I thought. Oh, confound it. And he like runs away.
Yeah.
Like, why didn't he just go talk to him? What's up, Clive? I'm alive. Everything's cool. Let's join forces.
But that's what happens now, even with
I know.
Ultima inside of him. It's just not an issue after this fight.
yeah. So, like, I don't get it. I really don't get the motivation behind avoiding Clive all the time. And I hope there is an explanation and someone can clear that up for me, particularly if it's not a theory, but just like a literal, hey, here's the ATL entry and it says this, or something more concrete, because it would have made a lot more sense for Joshua to have come to Clive for help a lot earlier.
Yeah.
Like, particularly since now, like you said, it's totally fine for them to be working together.
Right.
He's got Ultima in him still. So if that was the reason to avoid him, now they're going to journey together and work together, and he doesn't try to like leave now.
Right.
So I literally don't get it.
It just didn't matter. As soon as he got caught, they were just friends.
Okay, now we can reunite.
Let
just
bygones be
because.
bygones.
Yeah, whatever. Okay.
So after the fight, we destroy the heart.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That's in space still. He like does that final.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Move. Dion is there. He wakes up and sees Olivier, but he sees him as Ultima, like the real form,
that's right.
And he throws his lance into him and kills him.
And he blue-centigrates Oliver.
Yeah,
Olivier.
blue-centigrates.
Olivier got blue-centigrated. And I was shocked at this. Like, what? That was that easy?
Yeah.
You don't know what to expect from Olivier because his character is he's such a weak little kid, but at the same time, obviously way more powerful than he was letting on. And then, like, there's no obvious thing of like, oh, I'll kill you. And he doesn't move. He just, boom, he's dead. He's out. That was crazy. And I guess it could be, and the fact that he blue-centigrated makes me wonder, was he ever a real person? Like, did Annabella physically give birth to this child?
I mean, she had to have.
I would think so, but he's not a person.
He's
an Ultima.
He's
like an illusion.
He's
almost.
whatever Harbird is, I think. Remember I made that earlier?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Wait.
Or was it Harbird, or are you talking about, what's his name, the other guy? Sorry, what's his name? We do meet another character like this later, but I'm not going to say.
I'll wait on this point till later. I don't know who I'm thinking of at the moment. It's not relevant to this.
Well, I know who it is, but we'll find it out next episode.
Anyway, yeah, the solid questions. Again, I have a million questions about this game, and I feel like I'm not getting a lot of answers.
Got to beat it,
to them.
then read all the ATL, and then
we'll see if what is answered and what is not. We have people here insinuating that these things don't get answers. So
yeah, we'll see. DLC later, I guess. Maybe DLC.
There is a DLC plan for
there
this.
There is. They've already announced
stuff.
Yeah.
So Leviathan is another icon that doesn't, I guess, get seen in this game.
Yeah, the whole reading about the 16 and then the icons and 2 for each element, I don't think
that was right.
Anymore.
I don't think that was it.
It could have been,
I have no idea what it is.
But then here's what happens. Anyway. So then after Dion does that, he says, he says something about his father, the Emperor, right? As it turns out, he's the one who killed the Emperor, as we're going to get to later on. Dion did, completely by accident. But then Dion kind of reaches up. His father was there in front of him, and kind of as a vision, he kind of like reaches up and his father grabs him by the hand.
Yes.
And it's almost an atonement with the father kind of moment, right? Where they finally are reunited and they understand each other.
You were right, son.
Yes, exactly.
Good job.
Good job. Well done, my good and faithful son,
Yeah.
And then it seems like Dion dies. And
yes.
The only reason I know that Dion didn't die is because I've played a few hours past this. But it seems
it did seem like he died.
It seems like he died, and that his spirit was welcomed by his father into the next life.
I got the same sense initially.
Yeah,
it's like, oh, he's not dead.
No, that was just he was just sleeping, I guess.
Yeah, I guess so.
Then we see what happened before
Yeah, Joshua goes to hell. Oh, yeah, and then we go back and see the whole scene. So
in the throne room. Yeah.
Yeah, basically, Dion arrived. He was leading the dragoons.
Yep.
They were making their coup. And the emperor is like, what are you doing? And
Yep.
he starts to speak to him, and it seems like he's getting through to his father a little bit.
Yes, at first.
And he, at the end of it, after first
He's like,
protesting
don't you
it-
notice what's happening here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and after first protesting it, Sylvester kind of comes back and, listen, you have to understand something.
Yeah.
As if he might know something
Right.
maybe about, I don't know if that's what he was insinuating with that remark, but it came across that way.
I almost wonder if it's like, look, I'm letting him be the puppet emperor for now.
Yes.
Because I had no choice. He was going to kill me.
Something
but
like that,
I'm working on a
maybe.
solution in the background, but I just
Yeah.
can't say it in front of him or something like that. That might be giving the emperor too much credit.
Maybe too much credit, but it seemed like there was something more to that line where it's like, listen, you have to understand, and he trails off.
Yeah.
But this is when Olivier stands up and starts talking. Oh, wait, no, that's not right. No, that's not right. Because
I think it's after the emperor dies.
Yes. It's after Dion tries to throw the spear through Olivier.
Yes.
And he
but the
steps in
emperor-
front of it and dies.
That was I did not see that
crazy.
coming.
That was crazy.
I didn't. And so a cool line of dialogue happens before that though, because the emperor was like, guards, are you gonna let the Dion do this? And Dion basically says to all the guards, he says, you all know what I'm talking about.
Yep.
You know that Annabella has been behaving weird. If any of you think that this is right, then step up and face me. And everyone just stands back. And the emperor's like,
they're not
really?
listening.
My guards aren't coming to me? They
No
all
one's gonna
listen
help
to
him.
They all know that, hey, something weird's been going on, and we're on Dion's side.
Yep.
And that's where the emperor kind of realizes, like, whoa, this is way beyond anything.
Step
right?
back. There's something you guys got to understand real fast.
But when Dion throws the spear at the young emperor, the king, I couldn't tell. Did the king purposefully throw himself in front of the spear, or was he kind of pulled?
I think he did it on purpose.
Not pulled by hands, but pulled by an unseen force. Like,
I think
whoosh.
you make a good point.
Because in order to make Bahamut angry, the king needed to die.
Yes.
And
that was
Ultima
the plan.
has the power to just slide someone
Olivier
over.
comes out and says it. Olivier, what does he say? He says, poor father, how he doted on his children. He drops the toy knight at this point, by the way. Like
Yeah,
the whole
that's right.
facade is fallen.
Yep.
That he would die to protect me was plain. It was but a matter of when. And Dion says, you planned this? So you're right. Ultima planned for the emperor to save Olivier, and this was all part of driving Dion crazy so he could be not in control, get the yellow eyes as he primes, and not be in control of Bahamut and rage so that Bahamut could fight Mythos.
Right.
So this was part of the plan.
So this was planned, but I had thought he did some force grab, like some Emperor Palpatine move, and just like pull this. It seems like the father did this of his own will, right? He was like, I will give my life
But you're
for my
right.
child.
It could have been some influence. That pulled
like
him
years
there.
in the making.
Yeah.
Right, of subtly influencing the king and him being this helpless thing that the king feels the need to protect. That could have been the whole purpose of this kid being so helpless all the time, is that then the emperor would be like, oh, I have to protect him, right?
Yes.
He needs protecting. He can't protect himself, which is not true.
Yes.
But the emperor didn't know that. I also just had a thought. If Ultima is in someone's shadow, then through the collective unconscious, is he not then immediately in everyone's shadows?
That's what I'm trying to say.
So
that's what I'm trying to say. That would be a way better explanation for Ultima's power.
Then he just resides in a separate dimension, basically. He just lives in a separate
And
plane.
it would explain instances like back at the end of the Titan fight where Clive is just sort of pulled into this almost other dimension where he faces Ultima.
That would be the dimension.
That's
the other plane then.
That's where the
shadow
shadow
world.
resides. It's the unconscious. It's
yeah. That's cool, man.
Like this just
if they didn't do it, we should.
There are other parallels to Xenogears, which I'm not going to talk about yet because we haven't gotten there.
I've seen at least one or two.
But there's some things here that lead me to believe even more strongly that if this was not intentional, this whole Union Shadow thing in the game, it would just be a miraculous freaking coincidence.
Yeah.
Because there's just too many parallels to Xenogears' plot, even that anyway, I won't go
Okay.
too far into that right now, but it's clear that there's something there to it, and I love that idea. I've been repeating myself ad nauseum at this point of Ultima having power through the shadow, and then in tandem through the collective, the whole
he can access
society's
other people's
shadow.
shadows. Yeah.
So I love that.
That would be cool.
That's a really cool villain power. It would change my whole perception of Ultima as a villain in this game. It makes him one of the coolest villains of Final Fantasy instead of one of the worst, in my opinion, if this is the case. Because I just don't love Ultima.
Yeah.
I haven't in the game so far. He's been my sort of like the least interesting part of the plot to me.
Yeah,
unless
I think I'd agree with
this
that.
is what you're saying about
Unless
him,
it's true.
unless that's which I'm accepting as canon. If that's it, he suddenly just gets boosted way higher.
Yeah.
That's really cool to me. But I don't know. There's still a lot of game to play, so we'll find out.
We'll see. Olivier then calls Dion a kinslayer.
Yep.
And Dion, at this point, it's clear that Olivier is completely controlled by Ultima. Like, it's obvious. And so in that sense, that the Emperor was saying, oh, this child is Grieger incarnate, right?
Yeah.
No, the child is Ultima incarnate. Right?
Yes.
It's like a body for just the will of Ultima to manifest itself in the world.
Well, and then there was somebody over here, I think it was Drake, who said in the ATL it says that the blue centigrated people are possessed by Ultima. It says
The
that
Akashic,
in the ATL.
so they lose their consciousness, right? And then they lose their will,
Yes.
right? So and then they then are submit to the will of Ultima, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yep.
So anyway, that's how you know it's an Ultima puppet, is if they blue centigrate.
So then
okay.
we come back.
I meant to look into this
oh yeah.
term, primogenesis. I ended up not doing it.
The beginning. So primogeniture is primogenesis means the first. So prime.
Yeah.
Is
Like primal.
and then genesis means the beginning. So first cause. Primogenesis
Okay.
means first cause.
Okay.
Primogeniture is a way of where the first son then becomes the next leader. That's called primogeniture, but that's the
Okay.
word gene, right?
Yeah.
But Genesis has the word gene in it as well, but it's more referencing to the whole universe. So primogenesis means the first cause that created everything as we know it.
Yeah, because after the scene ends, Ultima starts casting a spell. He's like standing on top of the spire. He has some dialogue here.
Oh, right.
He says, if it is consciousness that weaves your wills together,
Yeah, this was a good
consciousness that blurs the boundary between your own will and that of others, then we shall set you apart once more. The ties that bind you shall be severed, and humanity return to its proper place. By primogenesis shall a new age of reason begin. So, what did you make of that in that context? Using, I think primogenesis is the spell he's casting.
Yeah.
But
Which would it's essentially the flood. It's essentially like destroy everything and then remake it, right, into a new world.
yeah,
So, yeah, my reading on this, if consciousness weaves your wills together, consciousness that blurs the boundary between your will and others, which is as a social species and which is common within the psyche, collective unconscious, he's talking about how we're all kind of like, connected in some weird way that we aren't even aware of. He says, then we will set your will apart, or then we shall set you apart once more. The ties that bind you will be severed, and humanity will return to its proper place. By primogenesis, a new age of reason will begin, right? So that's it. He's going to a new world. But severing consciousness, right? Then you only have your own self-interested will, right? So the idea is that the conscious mind, being something more of maybe the superego, that there's this thing that like clamps down on yourself, that your conscious mind that holds yourself back, that it's where you've got your like moral ideas of morality and all these things that would typically be
Rational
associated.
thinking.
Yes.
Yeah, all that.
As opposed to just do what you want to do, man. Like
Yes.
get your will on and go will the world that you want into existence, right? And he's saying that Clive could do something like this, but he's got this dumb consciousness that keeps clamping down on his will, and so his will isn't being made manifest. You have to sever the connection between consciousness and will. That way you can throw away the consciousness, because who needs that? And then all you have is the raw will, right? And then
Yes.
the will would be something more like akin to the id, that just the primal
Yes.
desires of do what you want, get yours, and will things into existence, right?
Yes.
So if it's separate from anyone else's, right, because our conscious minds are all connected in some weird way, then it's the will that makes us all individuals.
Yes.
The consciousness weaves us together, but will, that's your own.
And alone, that will is weak. But
Yes.
when the consciousness ties all the people together, that's what makes humanity strong.
Like a collective will or
resisting
something.
him.
Sure, yes,
Right.
yes, exactly.
And so he's
exactly.
trying to sever these bonds
Yeah.
of consciousness in order to be able to take back his vessel. He wants to cut Clive off from all of
From
his,
everything.
his network of
Yeah.
people and all of that in some way. And Primogenesis is the way in which he intends to do this.
Sure,
the
so I
spell
guess
that he casts.
So Primogenesis would be referring to like the universe, but it could just be referring to this person. Like
Yeah.
so, if you cast Primogenesis onto a person, you dissolve them and remake them into whatever you want them to be.
Could
I guess.
be.
So that could be what's happening. Also, like you mentioned with the Akashic, you're right. That is mentioned a little bit later on. The Akashic are people whose
Their
consciousness
consciousness
has
has been removed.
Right. They
Yeah.
have no connection to each other, no connection, no conscious thought. They just have their will, but their will is a puppet that can be manipulated.
Yes.
Right. So they have a will towards their own self-interest. And then the God, and then Ultima then says, okay, here's what I want you to be interested. He then can direct the self-interest.
Well,
and the people
the
go
other
do
thing-
things that would be against their normal interest.
The other thing that's interesting is that Ultima is not, he never refers to himself in first person. It's always we.
Yeah.
So-
It's like a network.
There's almost I don't know how this ties into it. I'm just trying to like work through it. Like
Yeah.
it's like Ultima, whatever he is, whatever God being he is, it's like it's not a single entity, and all of the people are meant to be linked to that same.
Yeah.
They're all meant to be like the body of God,
Sure.
as individuals.
Yes.
but they're not meant to have individual consciousness,
Yes.
and so like he can't use his full body because like his
This
fingers
is
all
so
got
collective
consciousness.
unconscious,
It's
by
like
the
your
way.
fingers all became
Yeah,
conscious
and now
entities,
they do
and
their
they
own
want to do their own
things.
things. Like, no, you fetchers are supposed to
No.
do what I say.
Yeah. What's your
What
deal?
are you doing?
That would
And
be crazy.
I think that's like and he's perplexed by this. Like, wait,
Yeah.
not as supposed to. How do I stop this?
Yeah, it's like they have their own like being, right? But they're
Yeah.
only they should merely be extensions of my being. Like what's happening here?
And so
Yeah.
whatever this spell is meant to do that darkens the skies here.
Yes, that's what happens after this.
No, I think we also missed Annabella's suicide.
We
real
did.
quick.
So Annabella freaks out because she sees Joshua.
Yeah,
right?
Joshua tries to come up. It's like you're saying.
Yeah.
She doesn't
She
want to
cannot
admit
it. Yeah.
what she did.
Yeah.
And so she'd rather slit her own throat than face Joshua. No, this is all just a bad
crazy.
dream, she's saying, right?
Yeah.
You're not real.
Yep.
Go away. And
None of
then
this is
rather
real.
than face or admit
Yeah.
who she was, face the shadow,
Yeah.
she would rather
Yep.
kill herself.
Right.
It's too painful. Anyway, so that
Oh, that's
happens.
crazy.
Not really much. I didn't take a lot of notes about it.
Not much,
other
but
than,
that was not expected. I did not think that
Yeah.
she would slit her own throat like that. I thought
Yeah.
we were going to kill her for sure.
There's one more scene I want to get through. We
Oh,
could save it for
We also
next
learn
time.
here that Joshua has a swelling in his chest, circled in stone.
Yes.
Right.
Right.
So the
There's
curse.
but
it's happening here.
petrification.
Yeah.
Right from the source of where Ultima's at.
Exactly.
'Cause
For other
that's
people, it's
where
their hands.
He's exerting magic. He's exerting
In that
energy to hold him there.
force.
So from that point,
Yeah.
it's like spreading out.
Because it
which I
usually
like.
happens to the dominant's hands, right? But it's happening to his chest.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's crazy.
We could save the scene with the king of Waloed for next time because that's going to be all
maybe
part of
we
the Odin.
yeah,
Should we just save that for
Yep.
next? Okay.
I think so.
All right. So that's where we're going to leave off there. We'll get into the whole
that was fun,
Odin
man.
arc.
And I need to
next
give
time.
more thought to the whole consciousness will connection
Yeah.
because I feel like the Akashic lose their will also,
Yes.
right? But he's saying, no, retain the will, but just lose this pesky consciousness.
This is kind of
the
where
will to be great. It's almost like the will is the back door for him to sneak in through the shadow and just control you completely.
Right.
So once you lose your consciousness, once the superego is out and you just have the id and not the superego's consciousness, it's just, those structures. Once those are out of the way, the id then can just take over and then he just owns you.
It
right?
just works so perfectly.
But that
as
means-
an explanation for his power.
It would.
He controls you through the shadow.
Through the
he gets
shadow.
rid of your consciousness. You go to the unconscious.
Yes.
You go to the shadow. and then
and
he
he's
can
there.
just control you.
And it's
from
just
that.
his body. His body, your shadow is just
This
his body.
literally
But-
fits
so-
perfectly. The jigsaw is just like
It's good.
absolutely designed for that to be the case.
So it makes me wonder then, why it makes me think then that when he says, "Oh, just you exercise your will," like why aren't you willing yourself to greatness, right?
Yeah.
That's an excuse. He's lying when he says that. He's
Yeah.
like, "Oh, you're with just your raw will, you could be great." But as soon as Clive succumbs to the raw will, that's when he loses it, right?
Yes.
And so there's kind of a lie in there with Ultima, at least if I'm reading this correctly, that the will is actually not what Ultima. Ultima does not want Clive's will. Ultima wants Clive's will to be gone, but he's convincing Clive to do away with his own consciousness through his will to power, and then he'll come in. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's just a
there's
theory.
going to be, this is basically where the plot goes. Like from here on, and
Yeah.
it's tons of stuff, because I've already played through the Odin scene.
Oh, sweet.
There's tons of conversation about this, about the will and
Okay, good.
stuff with
good.
Barnabas.
I look
the
forward
king
to
of the Will.
honing my ideas
Yeah.
on this then.
So
with relation to the
That'll
game.
be the majority of what we talk about next
Cool.
time, I think. So anyway, thanks for watching, everybody. We hope you're enjoying this. I know I am.
Me too. That's fun.
I have no idea how close we are to the end of the game, but we're going to try to get through the Odin fight next time. That's going to be like the goal for where we'll get up to next time. So until next week, peace out.
Peace.